How can you learn and how do you learn thousands of Japanese kanji? Let's find out. Hello noble ones and welcome to Metatron's Academy, the channel where we explore how to learn languages in the most fun and effective way possible. So today at the Academy we're learning how to memorize kanji in an effective way, kanji being the actual characters used in Japanese. Specifically, it's one of the 3 writing systems used to write and read modern Japanese. Now for those of you who are already experienced learners of Japanese, I'm just going to pronounce it correctly with a Japanese pitch accent once. That is kanji. Now for the rest of the video I'm just going to say kanji because it sounds and flows better in English. Now right off the bat I would like to say that kanji as a method to write and read is an extremely frustrating, complicated and complex system. Now I'm not saying this to discourage you, but it is also important to understand that whenever you read videos or you see titles or books that promise you, oh yes, let's memorize 2,000 kanji, 3,000 kanji in a week, in a month, they're lying and it's fraud. Understand that learning and memorizing kanji is a journey and it will take years. So the real question here is, well then, is it worth it? Well, let me tell you some pros and some cons. Let's begin with the cons. One of the major problems that make kanji particularly complicated is the fact that yes, you learn a system and you learn a lot of rules, but there are so many exceptions to those rules that it can become very frustrating where you try and apply a rule that has been told you or has been taught to you and then that rule doesn't work because, you know, kanji. But when it comes to the pros, the positive, let me tell you, as someone who has had personal experience, the rewarding feeling when you do manage to read and write well is extremely good. It feels good, it's great, it's a challenge, but it can be done. And having the right motivation is key. You need to fully understand why you're doing this and what sort of benefits it can give you. So let me tell you 2 very brief stories. I remember once when I was living in Japan, I was in the car with a colleague of mine by the name of Daisuke, and he was trying to get to a place, and I don't even remember where it was, but I remember that he had his GPS on his car screen. And of course there were a bunch of names all written in kanji and hiragana, and I remember reading something to him because I recognized the kanji and I knew them. Still remember it, it said Akoshi Hakobutsukan, which means Museum of the City of Ako. At the moment I read that in front of him, he said this. Which means, gosh, it's the first time I see a foreigner who can read kanjis. It really made me feel great. Another time I remember I was at work and we were having makanai being lunch or dinner eaten at work with your colleagues. And I remember my boss asking one of the Japanese, hey, write down a note and say, just write down that I need to go to the hospital later on today. The Japanese guy was writing it down and the word hospital, which in Japanese is byoin, is written with 2 kanjis, byo and in. Byo means sickness and in means sort of like facility or building. He wrote byo, but he didn't remember the kanji for in. Now, the funny thing is that when he stopped, because I knew that kanji very well, I just said very casually, oh yeah, it's this one here, and I wrote it down for him completing his note. All the Japanese around the table freaking exploded. They were all like, oh my gosh, he's foreign and he wrote the kanji you didn't remember. It was great, maybe not for the Japanese guy, but he laughed about it. It was really, really fun. If that's something you'd like to do, if you'd like to be able to watch anime and be able to read the subtitles with no problem, you play games and you can read and navigate the menus, you know what's going on, you know the kanjis. If you want to know how to do that, keep watching and make sure to subscribe to Metatron's Academy. First step, be truthful about your goals. Some people sometimes set goals that are absurd, like yeah, I'm gonna learn 1,000 kanji in a month. That doesn't happen, that they feel frustrated and they quit. I've seen this happen with a lot of students of mine. Set goals that are realistic. Step number 2, make sure that you understand that you need daily repetition. Now let me show you something. This is my university notebook. Yeah, I know. I used this when I was 23, when I was studying, and I used this to practice my kanji daily, every day. I would do it about an hour a day, except for like the maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the actual tests. I took 3 tests of kanji proficiency. I passed them all with maximum grades. I'm not boasting, I'm just saying this works. And I wrote on this one. Just before the exams I would intensify and even write up to 8 hours a day, but in general 1 hour a day was my usual routine. And as you can see, as we go through the first pages, first maybe 10 to 20 pages, the kanjis don't look really good. That's because first you want to work with quantity. You want to repeat the kanji writing over and over again. You want to keep writing them so that they stick into your mind. But then as you do that, you will improve your quality as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second, but in general, as you can see, as you go through the pages, you see that the kanji, the quality of the kanji, and my ability to write improves dramatically. Now, one thing that beginners who start writing kanji, one of the most common mistake is the fact that they write kanjis that are too large. At first, that's okay, but that's something that you will learn to do. You need to make them smaller and smaller because in general, you want a character, no matter how complex it is, to fit in the same space as any other character that you're writing. So you don't want complicated characters to be really big and very simple characters or even hiragana syllables to be very small. You want to kind of try and work within the 4 squares in a squared page, center your kanji and decide the space you're going to work in. This takes some time, takes some practice, but as you can see, as long as you practice daily, you will improve. Another step is the sort of extras that you surround yourself with. Now think about it. Japanese people, of course, learn kanji, but they are surrounded by kanji on their daily basis. Even kanji that they don't know, because of course it takes a native Japanese years in school to learn the kanjis. And I will tell you towards the end of this video how many years it took me to learn and memorize 2,000 kanjis. But suffice to say that the Japanese have an advantage over you if you're not in Japan because they're surrounded by the writing system all day, every day. The idea is you need to try and simulate that as much as you can. So use extras. For instance, watch stuff in Japanese. This is Mononoke Hime. I've just bought it actually. But I remember that I used to watch this one. If you buy them from a Japanese retailer or store, they also have the subtitles in Japanese, which is great for kanji. Make sure you watch stuff. If you're not into anime, you could watch drama. If you're not into drama, you could watch movies. But definitely watch stuff in Japanese with subtitles because that exposes you to the characters. Another good idea is to play video games in Japanese. I still have these PlayStation 3 games because that was the system at the time, and all of these are still in Japanese, and I played through the entirety of these games, pausing, looking up the characters, but you can also do it with games that are not Japanese necessarily. For example, I have a copy of King's Bounty 2, and if you go into the menu, sub-menus, same for Conan Exile, for example, you can select Japanese as a language and boom, the whole game is in Japanese, and that's great for exposing you to the characters. Another idea is a technique that I use and I always have my students use, which is that of using a whiteboard. Put a whiteboard on your fridge or in your room on the wall. Divide it into 2, split it in the middle into 2. On the top, you'll write a weekly kanji. At the bottom, you'll write your daily kanji. The bottom, what you're going to do is that every day you're going to erase it, write another kanji that you're practicing, and then that's it. But then you keep it there all day. So not only you practice writing it, but you see it all day. You will usually choose kanjis that are kind of easier and you put them at the bottom. At the top instead, you'll choose a kanji that you find difficult. Oh gosh, this kanji is complicated, I just can't remember it. Put it at the top, rewrite it every day, but keep the same for an entire week. This will expose you to the kanji and will help you integrate, assimilate the lines and strokes both from a reading perspective and from a writing perspective. Now, how long did it take me and how long is it going to take you to get to a point where you're confident with your kanji? You can interact with the Japanese, you can send messages and emails, you can read them without dictionary, you can play games, and you can read a lot of things. Still not everything, but generally speaking, your Japanese, you feel confident with it. Well, it took me about 4 years, but I'd like to underline that the 4th year was in Japan. With that being said, the amount of time that is going to take you very much depends on how much time you can dedicate to it. So there isn't a magical number that can be applied to anyone. It depends. But one thing that really helps is your passion for it, which is why I'm strongly suggesting you to try and surround yourself and integrate kanji study with fun activities like games, TV series, movies, anime, manga, whatever you're into. This allows you to put more hours and more effort into the study without really feeling the pressure of it because you're enjoying it. So you shouldn't imagine studying kanjis as you sitting at the desk writing the same thing over and over again. That's also part of it. You do need to do that, but that shouldn't be all of it. In fact, maybe just 1 hour a day in the morning, I would suggest, because if you do it later during the day, like in the evening, in the afternoon, I noticed that I tended to skip it. If daily life goes on and then you get busy, you go to the gym, your friend calls, you forget, and then you don't do it. But if you do it in the morning, you have breakfast, kanji, then anything else. If you shower in the morning, you could do shower, breakfast, kanji, and then anything else. If you do that, then you'll notice that you'll always get it done, you'll feel better about your goals, and it will really, really help. But of course, that very much depends on your person. If you're a night owl and you prefer to set a time at night, 1 a.m. to work on your kanjis, you can do it as long as it works for you. Now, can you get to this point of knowing 2,000 kanji before moving to Japan, or is it mandatory for you to move to Japan, otherwise you'll never get it? You can absolutely get that. It's harder. So if you do have a chance, maybe after a year of studies, to go to Japan and spend some time there, then it will be easier for you because you'll be reading menus, you'll be receiving your light bills in Japanese, you'll get emails. It will be easier for you to keep on memorizing and being exposed to the kanji. But if you can't do it, you don't have the money to do it, you don't have the time to do it, you have other things that could force you to stay where you are, then no, it's not impossible to get to 2,000 kanjis without having the chance to move to Japan, but it definitely is harder, so that's something to take into consideration. Okay, but if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will be more than happy to connect with you and help you out through your journey of memorizing kanji. Thank you very much for watching Metatron's Academy, and arigato.